Hello, my name is Katie Kirk. I am a Women's Studies major at ETSU, and I want to thank you all so much for having me at your meeting today. I have something very important that I need to discuss with you all. It is the House Bill 229, Senate Bill 49, or as it's been nicknamed, the Don't Say Gay Bill. Now, I know that in Tennessee we did end up letting that bill die. No one voted on it, so it was not voted on. It is not currently a threat. But still, since it was not voted on, since it is still there was no unanimous no voted on it. It could still come back, and it is not okay. The bill says, the General Assembly recognizes the sensitivity of particular subjects that are best explained and discussed in the home. Human sexuality is a subject with societal, scientific, psychological, and historical implications. Those implications are best understood by children with sufficient maturity to grasp their complexity. Notwithstanding any other law, to the contrary, no public elementary or middle school shall provide any instruction or material that discuss sexual orientation other than heterosexuality. The Don't Say Gay Bill is a direct affront to not only freedom of speech, but to the children of these schools as well. If passed, the effect it has on the LGBTQ and heterosexual students could be highly detrimental. The three main points I will be sharing with you all today are the fact that this law is an affront to the freedom of speech and the pursuit of happiness of these students and their families, the lack of acceptance of these children and the effect that it might have on them, and how a similar law affected a school system in Minnesota. Now, I understand that we are in the Bible Belt. We are in a predominantly Christian area, and there's nothing wrong with that. I myself am Christian. But this does not mean that those values, that those ideals, and the things that we find in our Word of God have to be completely over everyone else. This is a violation of everyone's freedom of speech. If you cannot talk about your own sexuality in school, what does that mean for you? Are you a citizen of the United States? Everyone else can talk about the way they are. But if you take that away from someone, you're stripping them of who they are. If Christian values the argument, then it is invalid. Because as a majority, though we are the majority, we cannot push our values on every minority group. This is America. People have fought for this freedom. The people who came here came for the freedom to be who they were. We cannot simply strip a group of their rights, of their ability to be who they are, simply based on Christian core values, though those are arguable as well. This also takes away their pursuit of happiness. This is America, the land of the free, the home of the brave. Everyone comes here. Everyone who lives here has opportunity. Opportunity to live, grow, find a good job, get a family, have children, and just thrive. By telling someone they can't even speak about who they are, or maybe who their parents are, is completely othering them. It is saying that they are not the same level of all these other people who can go wherever they want and just know that people will be okay with them because they are heterosexual, because they are straight. The effect that it would have on children is enormous. Can you imagine, as a child who had gay or lesbian parents, going into a classroom and everyone is told to do a family tree? Now, they probably wouldn't tell you you couldn't write your two mommies or daddies on the tree. You would just do it. But say another classmate says, Well, why does Susie have two mommies? This cannot be addressed in a classroom now. The teacher can do nothing but say, I'm sorry, we can't talk about that. Now, what does that do to Susie's psyche? It is saying, your parents are weird and different, and we don't accept them, so we can't even speak about them. And that says to the other children as well, the same thing. Think if you were a gay or lesbian child yourself, or trying to figure out who you are, trying to not necessarily experiment, but just realize yourself. You have no one to talk to in the schools. You have no one to go to. You can't find that teacher to confide in. You can't find that guidance counselor to just spill your feelings to let someone know. If you don't have a home life that is accepting, if you have a home life where you know you would be out on the streets if they found out, you now have nowhere to go, no one to talk to. If you can't even feel safe speaking about it at school, where you are supposed to be protected, where you're supposed to be able to find friends and grow and learn about yourself and learn who you are, then what is there for you? Making homosexuality a taboo subject in the school system could only increase the bullying on these students, because saying to all these children that you can't even talk about this subject is like saying that all of those people who fit into that category are nothing. They shouldn't exist. They are so awful we can't even talk about them in school. Children should not know about them. Again, how are these children or the people in this group supposed to feel? This would also make it to where these children who, in such a rural area as ours, as most of Tennessee is, in the Bible Belt where we see a lot of opposition to this group, these children would see even less representation of their home life, of how they are. If they have two parents, this will never come up in their sex ed class or their health class. They will never learn how to properly engage in sex the way they are. And this should be taught to them. We want the same health and knowledge for these students as we do our straight students. They should be given the same opportunity for this knowledge as the straight students. Not being able to speak about homosexuality in the classroom, in schools, will also leave the teachers unable to help if there is an issue, because they might feel too frightened about losing their jobs or breaking the law or being caught. So if there was a bullying situation and they knew for sure it was about that, they may be able to stop the initial actions, but they can't tell the child who is perpetrating the action why, because they would have to discuss the homosexuality behind the reason. Now, there was a similar law like this passed in Minnesota. It was also nicknamed the Don't Say Gay Bill. In this school system, it was also rural. It was a very, very Christian area. And when they passed the bill, they rejoiced. They constantly put out propaganda against homosexuality and fought against it. Now, all of this only fueled the bullying that was already running rampant within that school system. There was already bullying against the homosexual students, but they at least took comfort that they could talk to their guidance counselors and band together, at least at school, and find comfort in that. Once that law was passed, they no longer had that. They no longer had that cushion. They were told, or they were made to feel like they didn't matter, simply because of the way they identified, of the way they were, of the way their friends were. Before the law was rescinded, before they took it away, before they stopped it, there were 9 suicides in all. 9, just within this one school district. 9 suicides, 9 children died. 14 more children were assessed for contemplating suicide, and others were hospitalized for mental health issues, all resulting from the heavy atmosphere, from the sense of not belonging, from the sense that they weren't on the same level as the rest of the students anymore. They were bullied more because of the propaganda around them, because of the law. The teachers admitted that they were afraid to step in for losing their jobs, that they were afraid to be there for these students. 9 children died, and not all of them were homosexual. Not all of them were gay or lesbian. This affected all of the students, gay and straight alike, because when you were exposed to your own mortality, when you were exposed to such ideas that you don't matter at such a young age, it weighs on you. It weighed on all of them. They now have, and this is the way we can prevent this, this is the way we should be going, rather than the Don't Say Gay bill. We should be working to include all students. The Minnesota school now has GSA meetings, Gay Straight Alliance meetings. This is for gay and straight students alike, allies, friends, whoever wants to be there for these students. One was quoted saying, this is quoted from a magazine that said, I asked for a show of hands. How many of you feel safe at school? Of the 19 kids assembled, 2 raised their hands. The feeling of insecurity continues to reverberate, particularly through the Anoka Hennepin Middle School these days, in the wake of the district's 9th suicide. In May, Northdale Middle School's Jordan Yunner, a 14-year-old with no evident LGBT connection, took his life. Psychologist Cashin says that at Northdale Middle School alone this year, several students have been hospitalized for mental health issues, at least 14 more assessed for suicidal ideation. For a quarter of them, she says, sexual orientation was in the mix. This was at one middle school. Only one. This amount of horror was at one middle school. The district rescinded the policy and instead attempted to affirm the dignity and self-worth of the students. They added a full-time officer, harassment prevention official to bolstered mental health counseling and identifying harassment hotspots on the campus and the middle schools and high schools. They are making a greater effort to help these students, to protect these students, to be there for them, to include them. Because as you just saw and as you just heard, othering them, pushing them aside, not being able to stay gay, not being able to be who you are, is deadly. I beg you, I plead with you, if you do ever get a chance to vote for this type of bill again, vote no. Vote no for the children who died in Minnesota. Vote no for our own children. If we try having more GSAs in schools as options for these children in our own areas, if we try to identify harassment and stop bullying of all kinds within our school systems, who knows how many lives we could save. I have spoken to you today about freedom of speech, the effect that this law could possibly have on our children, and how this law affected those lives of those students in Minnesota, and how we can stop it, how we can prevent it from happening. The Bible says, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God. And everyone that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God. And he that loveth not, knoweth not God, for God is love." As a predominantly Christian area, I believe we should take this love and show it. Thank you very much.